The oxygen mask hissed, a rhythmic, haunting sound that filled the sterile silence of the ICU. Alara watched her father's hand, the hand that had taught her to tie her shoes and paint landscapes, lay motionless on the white sheets. Paralysis. The word felt like a death sentence. Her chest felt like it was being crushed by a hydraulic press. She needed Sarah. She needed her best friend's voice before she collapsed on the cold linoleum floor. With trembling fingers, she typed a frantic message into her phone, her tears blurring the screen. Sarah, please, it's Dad. He's paralyzed. I'm at Mercy General and I can't stop shaking. I think I'm losing him. Please talk to me. She hit send, unaware that her thumb had slipped, turning a 3 into an 8. High above the rain-slicked streets of Chicago, in a penthouse that felt more like a glass cage than a home, Alex sat alone. He wasn't a man who received personal texts. He was the silhouette in the shadows of Thorn Holdings, a man whose name was whispered in boardrooms with fear. His private phone buzzed. He expected a merger update. He got a girl's breaking heart. He stared at the message. His first instinct was to delete it, but the words, "I think I'm losing him," hit a tripwire in his memory. A memory of a cold funeral when he was only 10, standing over a casket that held his own father. He began to type. "You have the wrong number," he sent. Alara's heart dropped. "Oh God. I'm so sorry. I'm alone in the hospital. I'm sorry to bother you." Alex looked at the rain lashing against his floor-to-ceiling windows. He thought of that 10-year-old boy in the black suit who had no one to tell he was scared. "Wait," he typed quickly. "Don't apologize. My name is Alex, and I know what that hospital waiting room feels like. I lost my father when I was young. The silence is the hardest part, isn't it?" Quote, "In the hospital." Alara let out a sob of pure relief. A stranger, a man named Alex, but he understood. "The silence is deafening," she replied, her fingers flying. "It feels like the world ended and I'm the only one left." "You're not alone tonight," Alex wrote. "I'm staying up to finish some work anyway. Stay on the line with me. Tell me about him. Tell me a story about your dad before the machines took over." For the next 6 hours, the billionaire who had built an empire on ruthlessness became a ghost in the machine. He didn't tell her he was the man who owned half the skyline. He didn't tell her he was the Ice King. He was just Alex, a voice in the dark for a girl whose world was falling apart. "I wish I could hear you," she texted as the sun began to bleed through the hospital blinds. "Your words are so kind. I bet your voice is even kinder." Alex looked at his reflection. Sharp, cold, and professional. "I have a chronic voice condition," he lied. "It's painful to speak, but I can type all night if you need me to." "Then keep typing." "Alex," she sent. "Please, don't stop." He didn't. He couldn't. For the first time in his life, Alex wasn't calculating a profit. He was chasing a feeling. The sun rose over the Chicago skyline. But for Alex, the day didn't truly begin until his phone vibrated at 2 a.m. His life was a meticulously curated fortress of power. By day, he was the ghost in the machine of Thorn Holdings, a man who could bankrupt a small country with a signature. But by night, he was just Alex, the digital shadow who belonged to a girl named Alara. 2 weeks had passed since the night of the stroke. 2 weeks of thumb-to-glass intimacy that felt more real than any board meeting he'd ever chaired. "You're still awake," Alara's text flashed across his screen. "I can feel your energy through the phone. Or maybe I'm just hallucinating from hospital coffee. I'm a night owl, remember? How is he tonight?" "Stable," she replied, "but the doctors say the stress is what triggered it. He was fighting so hard." "Alex, there's this corporate parasite, Thorn Holdings. They're trying to rezone our neighborhood. They want to tear down the community center where my dad teaches woodshop. They sent him an eviction notice on his birthday. Alex felt a cold chill that had nothing to do with his penthouse air conditioning. Thorn Holdings. His company. I hate them, she continued. I hate the man who owns it. He sits in some gold tower while my father loses the ability to walk because of his greed. Maybe he doesn't know, Alex typed. Maybe he's just a man who lost his way. No, Alara replied. Men like that don't have hearts. Not like yours. I wish I could hear you say it'll be okay. Why won't you call me? Just once? Quote. Alex closed his eyes. One word would shatter everything. My throat. The surgery left scars. I can't speak above a whisper. It's better this way. I don't care about scars, she replied. I just want you. He asked her for a voice note. Her voice was silk and heartbreak. Soft, tired, hopeful. Good night, Alex, she whispered. Thank you for being the only light in this dark room. I think I'm falling for a man I've never seen. Alex replayed it again and again. He looked at the Thorn Tower blueprints on his desk. For the first time, the numbers looked like bloodstains. I'm falling too, he typed. More than you could ever know. He didn't sleep that night. He listened to her voice on a loop, realizing that to save her father, he might have to destroy the empire that made him who he was. Alex had always been a man of absolute control, but now, he was a ghost haunting his own hallways. In the high-tech war room of Thorn Holdings, his executives were presenting the final clearance phase for the Ohio district. Alara's neighborhood. The maps on the wall showed her street shaded in red, a zone of inefficiency to be erased for a luxury tech hub. The residents are resisting, sir, his VP of development said, pointing to a photo of a small, local woodshop. Specifically, this one. The owner is in the hospital, but his daughter is leading a social media campaign against us. She's persistent. Alex stared at the photo of the shop. It was the place Alara had described with such love. He felt a sickening lurch in his gut. Cancel it, Alex said, his voice a low, dangerous rasp. The room went silent. Sir? The permits are all ready. Quote, I said cancel it, Alex snapped, his eyes flashing with a cold fire they hadn't seen in years. Find another location. Double the payout to the residents for the inconvenience. And the woodshop? It's to be designated a historical landmark. Immediately, as his staff scrambled in confusion, Alex retreated to his office and pulled out his private phone. I think your luck is changing. Alara, he typed. I heard a rumor Thorn Holdings is pulling out of your neighborhood. Maybe there's a soul in that machine after all. Minutes later, his phone vibrated, but it wasn't a celebratory text. It was a voice note. He pressed play, and her voice, that beautiful, melodic silk, was thick with tears. They aren't just pulling out, Alex. They sent a legal team today to compensate us. But it's too late. My dad, he saw the news. He got excited, and he tried to stand up. He fell. He's back in surgery. All because of that man. That coward, Alexander Thorn. Alex felt the air leave his lungs. I'm going to Chicago, her voice continued, now hardened with desperate resolve. There's a public gala at Thorn Tower tomorrow night. I'm going to look that monster in the eye and tell him he's a murderer. I need to see the face of the man who broke my family. Alara, wait, Alex typed. Don't go. It's dangerous. Why are you defending him? She replied, You've been my rock, Alex. But you're hiding. I'm going to face him alone. Alex threw his phone across the room. He was trapped. If he stayed hidden, she would walk into his world and be destroyed. If he revealed himself, he would become the monster she hated. He pulled out his black tuxedo and stared at his reflection. I'll be there, Alara. He whispered, but you're going to hate me when you see who I am. He sent one final message. Wear the blue dress you told me about. The one that matches the lake. I'll be looking for you. The stage was set. The billionaire and the girl from the hospital were about to collide. Thorn Tower was a cathedral of arrogance. Gold-leafed ceilings. Champagne that cost a month's rent per glass. And the elite of Chicago draped in silk and cynicism. Alex stood on the mezzanine, his knuckles white as he gripped the marble railing. His heart, usually a cold, calculating machine, was thundering against his ribs. He scanned the crowd, his eyes skipping over governors and supermodels until they landed on a flash of cornflower blue. There she was. Alara looked like a fallen star. Her dress was simple, bought from a thrift store and tailored by hand. But she carried herself with a dignity that made every diamond in the room look like cheap glass. She looked small, fragile, and utterly terrified, yet she was marching toward the center of the ballroom where the Ice King was expected to make his entrance. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A text. Alex, I'm here. I'm shaking so hard I can barely stand. I wish you were here. I keep looking for a man with kind eyes, but all I see are vultures. I'm going to confront him now. Wish me luck. Alex felt a physical ache in his chest. He looked down at the screen. Then at the girl standing 50 feet below him. He couldn't let her do this. He couldn't let his security detail drag her out like a common trespasser. He turned to his head of security. When the girl in the blue dress approaches the podium, let her through. No one touches her. Do you understand? Quote, sir, she's not on the list. Quote, I don't care, Alex hissed. She's the only guest who matters. Alex took a deep breath, adjusted his cufflinks, and began his descent down the grand staircase. The room fell into a hush. The Ice King was moving. People parted like the Red Sea. Alara stood her ground. As he reached the bottom step, she stepped forward, her face pale but her eyes blazing with a fire that stopped him in his tracks. Up close, she was even more breathtaking, and her grief was a palpable, heavy thing. Alexander Thorne? Her voice rang out, trembling but clear. He stopped 3 feet from her. He could smell her perfume. Lavender and hospital soap. It was the most honest thing in the building. I am, he said, his public voice deep and authoritative. My name is Alara Vance, she said, her chin trembling. You don't know me. I'm just a number on a spreadsheet to you. But your urban renewal destroyed my father's life. He's lying in a bed right now, unable to speak. Because of your greed, I came here to tell you that you might own the land. But you'll never own us. You're a coward hiding behind glass and gold. The room gasped. 100 cameras flashed. Alex didn't blink. He just stared at her. His heart breaking for the woman who hated him. The woman who had spent every night for the last month telling him she loved him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Slowly, deliberately, he typed a message. Look at your phone, Alara. He hit send. In the middle of the silent ballroom, Alara's cheap, cracked phone chimed with a loud, familiar notification. She blinked, confused, and instinctively looked down at the screen. I told you I'd be looking for the blue dress. Alara's breath hitched. She looked at the screen. Then slowly, agonizingly, she lifted her head to look at the man standing in front of her. The monster. The billionaire. No, she whispered. No, it's not. You're not him. Alex is. Alex is kind. Alex is. Alex is a man who lost his father too young, he said. His voice softening. Alex is a man who was too afraid to tell you the truth because he knew the moment he did, he'd lose the only light he's ever had. The betrayal in her eyes was sharper than any knife. She looked at the phone, then at his billion-dollar tuxedo, and then she did the only thing she could. She turned and ran. The gala didn't end with a speech. It ended with a silence so heavy it felt like the building was collapsing. Alex stood frozen at the base of the stairs. The flashing cameras capturing the Ice King, looking human for the first time in a decade. Shattered. He didn't care about the headlines. He didn't care about the board members whispering in the wings. He only cared about the blur of cornflower blue disappearing through the heavy oak doors. He ignored his security and sprinted after her. Outside, the Chicago wind was a razor, whipping the rain into a frenzy. He found her standing by the curb, her shoulders shaking, desperately trying to hail a cab that wouldn't stop for a girl crying in the rain. Alara, wait, quote. She spun around, her eyes red-rimmed and fierce. Don't you dare use that voice with me. Alex doesn't exist. He was a lie. A sick, cruel game you played while you were tearing my father's life apart. Quote, it wasn't a game, Alex shouted over the thunder. Stepping into the rain, his $5,000 suit soaking through in seconds. The texts were real. The nights I stayed awake just to make sure you were okay. That was me, not the CEO. Just me. You signed the papers. Alexander. She screamed, her voice breaking. You sent the men who broke his heart. How can the man who saved me be the same man who destroyed him? Quote, because I was blind. Alex moved closer, his hands out as if trying to catch a bird. I was a machine. I didn't see people. I saw numbers. Until I saw you. Until I heard your voice. Alara, I stopped the project. I landmarked the shop. I tried to fix it. Quote, you tried to buy your way out of a guilty conscience, she spat. I don't want your money. I want the man I talked to at 3 a.m. But he isn't real. He's just a ghost you made up. Before he could answer, her phone shrieked, a high-pitched, jagged tone. Alara froze. It was the hospital. Her face went from flushed with rage to deathly pale in a heartbeat. She answered, her hand trembling so violently the phone almost slipped. Hello? Yes. This is she. What? No. No. Please. She collapsed. Alex caught her before her knees hit the wet pavement. She didn't fight him this time. She couldn't. She was hollow. His heart, she whispered into Alex's chest. Her tears hot against his neck. There's a complication. They say he needs a specialist, a neuro bypass. But there are only 3 surgeons in the country who can do it. And they're all in private practice. They won't even take the call. Alex felt a cold, sharp clarity wash over him. This was why he had the billions. This was why he had spent a lifetime building a throne. Not for the gold, but for the power to move heaven and earth when it mattered. He pulled his phone out, the one he had used to text her. He didn't text this time. He dialed, Dr. Aris? It's Alexander Thorne, he said, his voice dropping into the command tone that moved markets. I don't care if you're in surgery. I don't care if you're in bed. There is a life flight helicopter landing on your roof in 20 minutes. You are going to Mercy General. If that man lives, you name your price. If he doesn't, I will personally ensure you never hold a scalpel again. Move. He hung up and looked at Alara. She was staring at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe. I am the monster you hate, Alex whispered, tucking a wet strand of hair behind her ear. But let me use my claws to save him. Please, just let me do this. He didn't wait for an answer. He lifted her into his arms and carried her toward his waiting limousine. The girl who hated the billionaire was now being whisked through the city by him. The two of them trapped in a silent car where the only sound was the ticking of the clock and the terrifying realization that love and hate were just 2 sides of the same coin. The waiting room at Mercy General was no longer a cold, anonymous box. It was the command center of a king. Alex hadn't left Alara's side for 36 hours. He'd traded his silk tuxedo for a wrinkled dress shirt, his sleeves rolled up, his eyes shadowed with a fatigue that no amount of caffeine could cure. He didn't sit in the VIP lounge. He sat on the same plastic chairs where Alara had sat the night she first texted him by mistake. Dr. Aris emerged from the double doors, his surgical mask hanging around his neck. He looked exhausted, but he nodded. He's through, Mr. Thorne. The bypass was successful. He's resting. He'll walk again. Eventually. Alara let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. She looked at Alex, and for a fleeting second, the wall between them crumbled. Then, the memory of the Ice King returned, and she looked away. You saved him, she whispered. Thank you, but it doesn't change what started this. Alex stood up, his heart heavy. I know, and I'm not asking for a pass. Alara, I'm asking for a chance to be the man you thought I was. He reached into his pocket and handed her a thick, cream-colored envelope. What is this? She asked, her brow furrowing. My resignation, Alex said simply. I've stepped down as CEO of Thorne Holdings. I've turned the company into a trust. The neighborhood project is dead. Permanently. The wood shop is now a community foundation, and the profits from the Urban Renewal Fund have been redirected to local healthcare. Alara stared at him, her breath catching. You gave it all up? Your empire? Quote, it was a fortress I built to keep the world out because I was afraid of getting hurt again, Alex said, stepping closer until he could feel the heat radiating from her. But you broke in with a single, wrong number, text. I'd rather be a man with nothing who has your forgiveness than a king who has everything and is still alone at 3 a.m. He turned to leave, giving her the space she deserved. He walked toward the hospital exit, the rain finally stopping, the first light of dawn breaking over the Chicago skyline. He felt lighter than he had since he was 10 years old. Alex. Quote, he stopped. He didn't turn around. He was afraid if he did, he'd see the anger in her eyes again. You never told me, her voice drifted toward him. That beautiful, melodic silk he had fallen for in a voice note. You said you had a voice condition, that you couldn't speak above a whisper. Alex slowly turned. She was standing 10 feet away, her eyes shimmering with something that looked suspiciously like hope. I did, Alex said, his voice raw and honest. I couldn't speak to you because I didn't know how to tell the truth. My heart was the part that was broken. Alara, not my throat. Alara walked toward him, her footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. She reached out, her fingers trembling as she touched the stubble on his jaw. Say it, she whispered. Say the words you only ever typed. Alex leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. The billionaire was gone. The shadow was gone. There was only a man who had finally found his way home. I love you, Alara, he murmured, his voice a low, resonant vibration that made her heart skip a beat. And I'm never going to stop being the man who stays up all night just to make sure you aren't alone. Alara didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She pulled him down into a kiss that tasted like rain, relief, and a brand new beginning. High above them, the Thorne Tower still scratched the sky, but on the ground, in the quiet light of a hospital corridor, two people had finally found the right connection.